Besides down payment, what other sort of fees or expenses should I expect at the closing table? And that's a really great question, because everyone thinks, hey, I'm buying a $200,000 house, I got to put down my down payment. Say I'm putting down 10%, that's how much money I need. But there are a number of other fees that are involved within the transaction, and most of those get paid at the actual closing. So you bring kind of a lump sum with your down payment. You'll bring some extra money for most of those costs. However, there are a couple of things that do get paid ahead of time before the closing. So the big one that gets paid ahead of time before the closing is the actual inspection of the house that you're going to do, both the home inspection and a radon inspection if you decide to do that as well. And those get paid at the time of the inspection, which here in Illinois has to happen within the first week after the contract is signed. Another thing right after the contract is signed that is due is the earnest money. Now that does go towards your final numbers, and that's not money that necessarily you're paying for something, but you do have to write a check. It does get deposited and held, and then will go towards your final total amount of money needed when the closing actually takes place. The other thing that may be due at the time that it happens, or may be due at the closing, it just depends on how your lender handles that, is the appraisal. Some lenders will require the appraisal to be paid before the appraisal happens, and some lenders are okay with having the appraisal take place and then for the buyer to just pay for it at the time of closing. So those are the three things that happen before closing. And then at the closing table, there are other costs involved, like title fees, lender fees, any sort of points that you may or may not have. Here in Illinois, we use attorneys, so that's when the attorney gets paid. You will have your first year of insurance that has to be prepaid. That will be another charge at the closing. You will have to add so much money into your escrow account in terms of how many months of taxes and insurance. If you are using an escrow account, which most people do, the lender will have a certain dollar amount that is required to go into that escrow account to start things off. Now, here in Illinois, you do get a pretty big chunk of tax prorations from the seller. So sometimes that money is offset a little bit for the escrow versus the prorations, but that is still a cost of what to expect at the closing table. So those are a number of the things that are due. Usually closing costs, I give an estimate, they kind of range 2 to 3% of the purchase price is what extra closing costs are involved, especially here in Illinois with title fees and taxes that they are. So you have your down payment plus that, maybe 2 to 3% of actual closing costs, and that's kind of your total dollar amount for cash that will be needed.